Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. Napoli's Conte just keeps on improving, and you can tell that this is a team that is well trained by Conte, because even though Napoli had a string of substitute players playing today, apart from the likes of Lobotka and you could say perhaps Spinazzola, to some extent Neres, everybody else had limited game time this season, but Napoli still had a very strong identity. The lines between the different departments were very tight. We were tidy, we were pressing up the field. Physically, this team has come a long way since 2 months ago. Definitely players are able to be more in control of the game, cover spaces when necessary. And overall, just a very, very strong performance. And it is a sign of a very, very healthy team when guys that have played so little turn up and they know exactly what they need to do. They play well. Guys like Ngonje, for example, I've been saying in my lives that there are non-football related reasons, or shall I say, non-tactical, technical related reasons why Ngonje has not been picked so much by Antonio Conte. Read into that what you will, but clearly against Palermo in the Coppa Italia, you have to then play him, right? Regardless of all those kind of things, you have to play him, and he responded present. He lit up the first half with 2 goals in the first 12 minutes and really put his mark on the game. And now it will be super difficult for Conte not to pick him, at least as in a substitute type of appearance from here on out, because I mean, in the last 2 games, he didn't even get a chance to do that. I mean, if we just walk over the first 2 goals that he had, the first one, he actually provides a long pass towards Raspadori. Then Raspadori holds up the play, and as Ngonje is coming through down the middle, in what really should be the opposite, right? It should be Ngonje on the left and Raspadori in the center, but they switched position, and it's that fluidity in Conte's game. Once that happens, then Raspadori sends him the ball back, and Ngonje is able to find a shot on target. It's not clean. Sirigu definitely could have done better. That poor 37-year-old, he's got to leave the football before the football leaves him, if you know what I mean. But in any case, you make your own luck. You got to hit the shot. You got to put it on target. And how many times have Napoli players in the past tried, putting it in the top corner and the ball goes wide or the ball goes over? And I always say, just try to test the goalkeeper. You never know if he's going to make a mistake, and that's exactly what happened with the first goal. The second goal instead is a little bit different. Ngonje is in the position where Raspadori kind of was for the first goal. He receives the ball. The defense of Palermo is all out of shape. I don't know what they were doing. I mean, just look at them. 5 of them in a bit of a circle around Raspadori, and nobody picking up Ngonje. He has all the time in the world to get close enough to the box to be a threat. Raspadori makes a good run, taking along with him 2 defenders, and then he cuts inside and then cuts out again, and makes that Palermo defense look a little bit drunk on the field. And this time he hits the ball cleanly. Sirigu could do nothing at this point in time, and this is a player that I think now deserves, regardless of whatever Conte thinks of him, now deserves a few more minutes, because these are the players that win you games, that can decide a game in absolutely nothing. And we've got plenty of those now on the field. We've got Kvara, Ngonje, Neres. We've seen as well with Scott McTominay. We'll get to that in the second half. Now, another thing that we need to talk a little bit about is, before we get to our third goal, is this moment when it was 2-0 for Napoli that Palermo could have had a penalty, right? And this all starts with a long ball, very innocuous ball over the top, where if it was any other defender in this Napoli roster, or even if it was Ostigad or Nathan, who we sold in the summer, those defenders would have dealt with this ball, right? They would have been able to intercept it, or at least block off their man and protect him, protect the goalkeeper from this attacker getting in between themselves and the goalkeeper. They would have shielded some way with their body, but Juan Jesus, he is a liability. We conceded a lot of goals last year because of him, and with age, he does not get any better. And this time the ball went over the top, and you can see their starting position. They are one right next to each other as the ball is played. Fast forward 2 seconds while the ball is still mid-air, and Juan Jesus is already 3 feet or 1 meter, maybe even more, behind his man in a very short amount of time. So he's just lacking that acceleration. So now the player has gotten in between the ball and the defender, so it's basically up for grabs between the striker and the goalkeeper. Caprile comes out a little bit. Obviously, he does not want to venture too far outside of his box, which maybe in itself is a little bit of a mistake. Once you see that the ball, is not arriving to you in time, you have to go and take that risk, a little bit like Manuel Neuer does. But instead, he stays in his box, and it allows the defender to get closer to him. It allows the ball to bounce, and actually they collide. The referee did not think that this was worthy of a penalty. I honestly think that it was a penalty, and I would have been pretty upset if this wouldn't have been given to Napoli, but Napoli got, let's say, pretty lucky there. But I think it shows that Caprile, he's not quite ready, and the rumors maybe about some of the mistakes that he was doing in preseason maybe are true. I mentioned them in one of my summer videos, that people were saying, people that went to Castel di Sangro and Di Maro, they were saying that when they were watching the training sessions in preseason, Caprile was doing these kind of mistakes, like not coming out at the right way out of his goal. And it's clearly also why Conte decided to put a lot of faith in Meret this year, and Meret has returned that favor, even though now he is injured. Now, let's go back to our attackers, and it is the end of the first half. It is another corner, and of course, it is another Neres assist to who else but Juan Jesus. I mean, he can make anybody look good, this Neres guy. And look, if football matches were just corner kicks, then Neres would be a Ballon d'Or candidate, because he would have about 100 assists per season. I mean, it feels like every time this guy puts a cross into the box from a corner, it's just, the goalkeepers stand no chance, right? So that tells you everything you need to know about quality, right? And you compare that to some of the crosses that Politano puts. Against Juventus, he hit one good free kick, and the next corner was right on the first defender that was standing there. I mean, he's just so inconsistent. Whereas Neres, he delivers you that 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 type of content every single time. Then we get to the second half, and he gets a goal for himself. So not only is he a great assist man, but he also finally puts his name on the score sheet. And I think that's so important, because yes, it's important to have assists, but as an attacking player, I think the goal is always just a little bit more heavy in terms of how much it really means and how much it really puts pressure on the coach to play you, right? Because now you bring another element into your game. Politano, has not really gotten off the mark yet this season. So this all plays in favor of Neres. And, I'm fully expecting Politano to start the next game, because he was rested today. But then the one after that, I think that it has to be then Neres' turn to just pick it up from there. Then it was also Scott McTominay's chance to make it 5-0, guys, and he even could have had a double hitting the crossbar right after. But what's really interesting is his starting position for the goal. You can see him, he's basically playing as a striker. I mean, we talked the other day in the Juventus game how he was almost like this number 10 or attacking midfielder, but today he was essentially a striker alongside Lukaku, playing as just an out-and-out number 9, really. And I think that's super interesting, and I feel like he loves that. And finally, guys, last thing that I do want to talk about in this video regarding this game is that Rafa Marin also made his debut. We had not seen him at all, actually, the young Spaniard. And look, I think there's two things at play here. Number one, I think Napoli wants to keep this guy a little bit hidden, because if he plays too well and too much, then Real Madrid might, acquire him back. There's that clause element to it. So maybe Napoli also wants to keep him a little bit hidden to avoid that, because then they would have to pay even more to then re-grab him from Real Madrid, right? So there might be an element of that, which is like, don't play him unless you need to, and let him just grow through training sessions, and you know yourself how much he's actually worth without having the other team know. So that's one element. The other element is Conte said in preseason or at the start of the season that he still needs to improve his ability to play the ball, to find the forward pass. But honestly, I saw that he was very composed on the ball, sometimes playing one-touch football, always looking for that forward link up with Lobotka especially. So I have no doubt in my mind that he will actually turn out good and that he's improving under that aspect. The only thing that I saw a little bit from him was that he can be a little bit rogue at times, and maybe just has to mature a little bit when it comes to making the right decision in terms of his tackling. Because, for example, you're winning 5-0, you're up one man, because at this point Palermo also had a red card, and for whatever reason he makes a foul in the middle of the field in a non-dangerous situation and gets himself a yellow card. Now, you might say, okay, what does it matter? And it really doesn't matter for this game. But imagine over the course of the season, you pick up all of a sudden 3-4 different useless yellow cards, and all of a sudden you're looking at a match ban. Or all of a sudden, from a game that is completely, not challenging, you get a yellow card. Maybe it's a bit earlier in the game, and now you have to play 1 hour with a yellow card, and it makes the other team come back into the game because you can't tackle them. Maybe they score or something like this, right? Or you even get a second yellow and you compromise the team. So he needs to just work on that aspect there. Now, guys, the next games that we have, so these are teams that, ideally we get 12 points, but they're not easy games. Now, the objective is definitely the 12 points, and we have a bit of a cushion on teams like Atalanta, Inter, Milan, Juve, and all our rivals. We have a cushion, right? Because we only have Torino on top of us, and Torino will not stay first at the end of the season. I can guarantee you this. And after this run of 4 games, guys, it's super difficult for us because we have Milan, Atalanta, Inter, Roma, Torino themselves, and even Lazio, right? And then even Udinese, who are doing also pretty well this season, so not a bad team. So we have a run of 6-7 games, super difficult. So what we need to do before those games come up is get these 12 points in the next 4 and build up even more of a gap to these teams, because inevitably these teams might drop points even against each other if they face each other. And so it's so important to enter that first game, that first big game of the season, after obviously the one that we just had against Juventus. It's so important to enter that game with a bit of a cushion on those teams, right? Because I think it would be unreasonable to expect a win on all those games. Maybe out of those 7, I would, be happy with 3 or 4 wins, 2 or 3 draws, and 1 loss, or 2 losses at most. But if we get the next 12 points, it guarantees us to still, by the end of that cycle, still be in a good position So guys, that is everything. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Smash that like button if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. What are you doing, bro, if you're not yet subscribed? And please, if you want to support the channel, then join as a member for as little as $0.99 per month, all the way up to really however much you feel comfortable with, and that really helps with potentially in the future me being able to just do more things in the channel, get more equipment, editors, all that kind of funky stuff. So guys, thank you. Apologies for not going live in this video, but it is quite late, and I'll see you guys on the weekend after the Sunday night Serie A game. As always, Forza Napoli sempre. Ciao.